Last but not least, we have the hobbits. Even though they seem related to dwarves, what with the living underground and the vertical challenge, hobbits are a subspecies of men. For such an important and pivotal race, there is little written of their origin other than the phrase related to men. Turns out, with a million pages, you still can't talk about everything, just like in a 4-minute video. I don't know if you have this experience, but I have often found that if you have a low expectation of a movie,
Dungeon Bastard!
They live in trees, they're awesome with ranged weapons, and they live for hundreds and hundreds of years. Elves, they're like bald, malnourished Wookiees. I'm not gonna lie, elves are the Dungeon Bastard's second favorite race. Let's run down the pros and cons. You need to pick a lock? An elf's gonna do it. You need to fireball an advancing horde of Grimlocks? An elf's gonna do it. You need to grant the rest of the party a +1 morale bonus on attack and damage rolls with a rollicking strum on the lyre? An elf is gonna weave the brocade on your burial shroud. They're smart, agile, immortal, and they never sleep. There's only one thing wrong with elves. They snap faster than a sunrod in a cavern full of vampire hill giants. If you like casting spells and acing skill checks, elves are for you. If you like a little thing we call hit points, you're in trouble. You learn to stay out of the way or you get used to repeating this valuable phrase. How long was I out? The other downsides are you have to worship a bunch of hippie tree gods, pretend to meditate 15 minutes a day, and you're saddled with a dumb name like riboflavin figlin flower. All role-playing concerns and as such marginal, but you try charging into battle yelling, "Feel the fury of the figlin flower." It just doesn't work. Still, an argument could be made that the ideal party is a set of dwarven frontline fighters backed by elven wizards, elven rogues, and elven archers. But Bill, you say, according to the canon, elves and dwarves have antipathy toward each other. That's not a problem because elves and dwarves also have one thing in common. They don't actually exist. You want to argue about fictional game problems like how a fireball works? I'll tell you how a fireball works. Cast fireball, roll damage. Take it from the Dungeon Bastard. Never let a little flavor text ruin a good min-maxing. Elves, all the stats of a pointy-eared ninja, all the flavor of a Parisian street performer who burned his cousin's draft card at Woodstock.
Fighting the dragons and trashing the dungeons, saving the maidens and bashing the goblins. He's the Dungeon Bastard! He won't share his treasure with you.
Let's ride longsword.
Hey, that's mine, kid.
Dungeon Bastard!
And we're back.
They live in trees.
Hi. That
Hey,
was
that was what?
that was the thing. That was Dungeon Bastard teaching us about elves. And then
And then Tanlin muted his mic, so
Yeah.
you know
Oh,
what to
come
do,
on, for
peeps.
like 10 or 15 seconds just to come back and be like, oh, hey, I need to do this thing with the team speak to make sure that everybody can hear what we're doing later on. It wasn't like I went on for like a good 30, second long tangent. All muted.
mini Tamlin, mini pool. Did anyone see it though? Was the video still editing and they had no idea that you muted yourself?
I came back and I said it.
Oh, so you took yourself away. Should have played it off like, hey guys, like audio just rolled in. No, you walked yourself
So,
Tamlin.
Yeah, I'm gonna mention one last thing before we move on to the elves of Norath, and that is, does anybody remember in Dungeons and Dragons that one of the characteristics of elves is they didn't sleep, which is why they were immune to sleep effects, harm and sleep effects? All right, no other MMO has ever. I don't know. It's just weird to me that it was just Dungeons and Dragons.
Gygax!
I don't think it was mentioned in Lord of the Rings. All right.
Oh, I think it was, but like in passing, I think someone asked Legolas if he was tired, and he said no. I think everyone else went to go rest, and they're like, Legolas, are you gonna get some sleep? He's like, no need. I think that was it. They just moved on, like they never said anything.
Right. and therefore elves don't need sleep because Legolas said he wasn't tired when everybody else was.
I'm good, guys. I'm actually I'm a little full too from lunch from 3 days ago.
All right.
I'm sorry, but I have to say that was one of the funniest scenes in the movies when the elves are talking about lembas bread and how one small bite can fill the stomach of a grown man, and the hobbits were like, I ate 3!
Yeah, 3 of these things. What are you guys doing? Second breakfast.
Second breakfast is such a good idea.
All right, so coming back from break, we figured that we would talk a little bit about specifically the Elves of Norath in EverQuest next, and I think we're all kind of in agreement that it's like if they could get away with renaming the franchise from EverQuest into ElfQuest, they should have, except that ElfQuest is a comic that predates EverQuest by like 20 years, because literally Norath is like, it's Elf World. Every single facet of the story that we know so far of the EverQuest Next version of Norath is told in relation to how the elves fuck something over or mess something up, or they're in control of everything. It is...
And that's a theme for like a lot of elven stories too. Does anybody remember Forgotten Realms with what's that city's name? Oh my god!
It's
Menzoberranzan.
no,
not the dark elf one. The up top one. Oh god.
I know.
And that's the weirdest thing about doing a podcast, is that you think that you have all of this knowledge ingrained in your brain, and then when somebody puts it on the spot and you have to talk about it in front of like
Mithranor.
Go Lucy.
Pull that out of like the last second.
Mithranor. I figured it. That went horribly wrong. Horribly wrong.
Yeah, so I sense this is a reoccurring theme that elves, they get overambitious because of their arrogance with their magical powers, and they hubris, isn't that the word that I'm looking for? Because of their hubris, they break the world. And that's what we have going on in Norath. I wish that we could take a step back and look at the Combine races from an outside point of view, but it doesn't look like from the beginning of launch of the EverQuest Next game that we're going to be able to play like a... It's going to be centered around the Combine. And that's going to kind of suck, because the Combine might as well be called Elf-Light. It is the...
Elven friends.
Yeah, it's right. So the way that we were breaking it down, right, is that the elves enslaved the other races. The elves caused the war with the dragons. The elves came up with the plan to escape to Kunark, and then it was the elves that led the defense as the people fled. It's like the elves did this, the elves did that. I mean, we just have not been able to find a race that has been able to separate their history, their story, and their people from elves. Everything about Norath is elf-tainted. I mean, you can look at it either way, as in tainted as in physically, or not physically, but like really, really tainted as in corrupted, as in influenced by, or tainted as in it's all colored by. That you probably can't look at the humans that live in Halas without being like, and their relationship with the elves is this. It just doesn't happen.
Stupid elves.
I know, it's like,
Yeah,
even
where are
though,
the fairy stories?
Yeah.
Here's what we know about the Karen. We know what they look like. We know what their buildings look like. We know like kind of what their culture is like. What else do we know about them? Can let's like scratch it. We don't know anything about them, but we can go on and on and on about the elves.
I mean, we know more about the dark elves than anything else.
True, but up until a point, there was no difference between the elves and the dark elves.
That's true, yeah.
So you can look at the history of the Tyr doll as the history of the elves up into the point of the fall of Bastion. At that point in time, their histories become separate, but up until that point, they're essentially the same. It's not like they're talking about two different peoples. They're talking about a segment of this other population. Well, more specifically, we're talking about the military segment of this particular population. And you can argue that the story could be more about dragons than it is about elves.
No, because the dragons are simply the force that the elves are up against. Like, I mean, yes, we had stories about the dragons, but literally everything is elf lore. Like, the only reason they told us about the dragons is so that we could be all horrified by what the elves were doing to them, and know the dragon riders, and which were,
No, we're the elf.
I think some of them were elves.
No, they named 4 races of the not erudite era, but the era before the rise of the doll, and there were 4 races.
I thought Eldar was one of them.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I could be wrong. Either way, I don't think it's mostly about dragons. I think there's a good chunk about the dragons, but you can't play a dragon.
That's where I was gonna go. You can't actually play a dragon, and so and 2, dragons aren't humanoid. And I always make this argument when I'm talking about fantasy writing and fantasy settings and science fiction settings, is that when the further departure from what we know and understand, the harder it becomes for us to relate to those. Where it might be difficult to find and relate to an elf because 1, we have short lifespans, 2, we have no magic, 3, we don't have pointed ears, all of this type of other stuff. But we can still relate to them because, as far as we know, in every fantasy setting, they still have lovers, they still get married, they still have birth. We can all relate to them that way. And then you take that a step beyond that, like, at least dragons still have birth and lovers, but they're still freaking winged. They fly. They're enormous, and so our ability to relate to them becomes stretched out a little bit further and a little bit further, and it's like.
Not only that, but they have that element of, like, loss of free will, where humans and mortal races have always had the ability to choose their destiny, whereas dragons are constantly like, well, what do the powers that be want me to do? What is the best way to follow the path that was laid down before me? So there's always that little bit of, like, my will isn't my own, which I don't think that we can really understand or really relate with.
Right. And that reminded me of something also that I just lost it. Totally lost it.
I really feel that the dragons are set up as, like...
Dragons couldn't lie. That's what it was.
There's another one.
Remember that
we've definitely mastered that.
Yeah, the dragons couldn't. Didn't lie. It was like it was discovered after they got tainted. That I was like, oh hey, I can lie now. I can be deceptive, and that seems like something that comes naturally to humans and elves.
Within the stories, I think that they talk a lot about dragons, but within the game itself, the dragons are going to be the bad guys. They're going to be what everybody fights against, and the dragon armies are going to be what everybody fights against. Maybe not, completely, but I think that the whole dragon war is going to come full circle again once the Combine come back. But I think that they're basically set up so that the elves have someone to fight again.
So that the elves can fight against the dragons again?
Yeah, I think that they're basically a tool for conflict.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to have to be something's going to have to happen for the dragons to be like, dude, we don't want any, like, they absolutely decimated the elves on in their homeland, so that they had to flee and run away. And listening to the workshop, it was like they the developers and the storytellers on the official team were talking amongst themselves, like, how thorough of a job did the dragons do at destroying the elves, because that was their mission. It wasn't merely like, oh, hey, we want to break them up, we want to diminish their power. It was like, no, they were on a pretty much a genocidal mission to wipe the elves off of the face of the planet. Like, they just, no more elves, period. And so looking at it from that point of view, is like, what happened for the elves to back off a little bit, and they, where are the dragons gonna be when the elves start showing back up in the places that they used to live? So maybe it's going to have to be like the Combine Accord to be like, no, we've got the elves in check, honest. And the elves will be like, yeah, sure, we're totally a democracy now. We listen to these other races.
Do they Z-snap?
Well,
like the guy in Jeopardy?
He just did the, like, sort of, I don't know, it just made me...
Did I really? Oh, no.
Yeah, you did. You did, like, a sassy little... Yeah, you did a sassy move, so I was like, does he snap?
Yeah,
He totally does those.
like the Jeopardy guy. Like, you answered the question right, you're like, yes! Woo!
Yeah, Kai can do it better. I'm not as sassy. And I can't snap as well.
I just think that the Combine Accord exists not to bring the races together. I think the Combine Accord exists so that the elves have some way of diffusing blame. Like, we're not in charge. We didn't decide to do this. They all came to an agreement with us, and we decided to reestablish bases in our homeland. Wasn't us. We, so it's basically like they're getting accomplished what they want to accomplish, which is to return to their homeworld, while at the same time being able to diffuse the blame so that they don't anger the dragons to come back and totally wipe them out again. Because otherwise, that's the only way you really see it working out, because of how angry the dragons had to have been at the elves.
To be fair, they kind of had a reason.
They kind of had it coming, yeah. Especially
well, I mean, when you start kidnapping dragons and torturing them, and like in secret volcanic prisons, and making it so that they can't like be reborn or stuff like that, and subjugating all their draconic races, I mean, you're being a bit of a dick.
Kind of.
Only kind of.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry, we talk about dragons. My brain goes to Game of Thrones. I apologize. Trying to rein this.
There's no elves in Game of Thrones.
No.
There's not. It's set in a world where dead are real, dragons are real.
There's elves.
Humans.
We haven't met them yet, right?
Yeah, probably. Who knows? Doubtful, but who knows? There's giants. So.
And zombies.
Yep.
Well, that's undead. Come on, guys. Back to elves. Where's my tangent alert button?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that
I have it. I have it too.
Oh, do you? Does it say tangent alert? Tangent alert? What does it say?
Does it? Oh no, I didn't add it. I had it. Let's see what I do have. We could probably use this.
I don't hear anything. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry it didn't work. I don't know why.
Oh well. But yeah, I definitely.
Yeah, it's so sad.
I definitely agree that the elves had it coming, and not just for what they had done to the dragons, but the fact that they were like interstellar travelers going between different worlds and kidnapping and enslaving populations where they could. It was kind of what they were doing.
There it is.
Yeah.
Took me a second. It works now. Hi. So, I mean, there's a huge chunk of time between when the Combine race leaves and then comes back. Do you think in that time that they are gone, that the elves change their ways, and instead of being like, well, this is a group of people we kind of enslaved and then set free because we needed to cross the ocean?
Well, they got enslaved themselves.
Yeah, well, that too.
They got a little bit of taste of their own medicine. They're like, oh, maybe this does suck.
This sucks, guys.
But they did
Jeff,
mention that
this sucks.
they did also mention that that there might be elves that are elderly elves in the Combine that remember before the flee. They remember fleeing with the Combine over to Kunark and then going back. Like they're old enough to live through that entire span. And if an elf thought that he was better than all the other races before that happened, do you think that he would change his mind? Or was he just merely being pragmatic and being like, well, this is my best chance of survival, might as well play along?
That's probably the play along thing. I mean, like older, it's kind of like elderly people nowadays. They have what they were raised on and their beliefs and their crotchety, and they yell at kids to get off their lawn. I mean, so
basically, what Flatus is saying is everybody's grandparents are a little bit racist.
Probably.
So true.
It is true. If they're not racist, then they're horribly prejudiced against something.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that. I can kind of see that, where the older elves are kind of like don't listen to Grandma talk. She just, she doesn't get it. She's like, she remembers the good old days and doesn't realize that those are far beyond us. But me, I am an elf that's okay with everybody. I'm Buddy Elf. 2 thumbs up.
Buddy Elf.
I love playing like something that's like completely against the stereotype. So, like I've said before many times, in World of Warcraft, I played a plucky, optimistic Shadow Priest.
I dig it.
Hamlin has a dust dealer.
That's my blood elf. And that's part of that role playing of dark characters is like because the moment that I heard that blood elves in World of Warcraft had been addicted to fel magic at one point in time, I was like, oh well, let's play around with the addiction. There's got to be some blood elf out there, vending arcane dusts on the black market, being, you want a little sniff of some arcane stuff? I got the best,
Enchanters mats, totally.
That is exactly. Yeah, and
so didn't they retcon that?
What retcon? What?
Didn't they take that back? They're like, no. The blood elves aren't addicted to mana.
I would assume that they can't go back on that because, one, that's the reason why blood elves' eyes are green and not blue, and two, that's why they have the I forget what they're called, but in the blood elf starting area, you kill
the wretched or whatever they are.
The wretched, that's what they're called, the wretched, because those were the ones that fell to their addiction to fel magic or whatever, and yeah.
I'm just saying, at one point, I have to make an elf. Like every single elf that is available to me in a game. I made a blood elf, and I might have played. I think which they all had the racial ability Mana Tap, right?
Arcane Torrent.
Yeah, but basically Mana Tap. It's basically what it was. I set up a macro that went with it. That was along those lines of the things that you were talking about with the addiction, and that was the most fun I've ever had playing in a starting zone, because you had so many other people being like, "What the fuck? What are you doing?" Just mana tap. It's fine. Shh, it's fine. Just need another hit.
Well, that was one of my frustrations with Warcraft, is that one of my first blood elves was also an herbalist, and in the blood elf starting zone you would get addicted to blood thistle. And it would tell you that you were having addiction, and I'm like, oh wow, there's got to be some mechanic to go along with this. I wanted, but no, it was all flavor text, and that's where I would like to see a little bit more of those mechanical, not necessarily addiction systems, but those little itty bitty systems in a game that add to the life of it in obscure ways that don't mean anything to the people, but to the people that discover them.
What are you talking about? Every single peasant just goes about their day in the same way. They go, they farm, they go inside, they sleep. That's it. That's all their life is. Nobody has any nuances. Yeah, they
and
sure.
And NPCs sleep.
Yeah, well, in EverQuest Next, they told us they're going to.
That's one of the things I'd love to see, like, people lock their doors and lock up the city gates at night so that you're stuck outside overnight and be like, guys.
You're sitting there staring at the gates going, I wish I had my grappling hook right now.
Yeah, either that or, it's like, hey, we've got to finish raid up in 10 minutes because then we have to hightail it back to the city before they lock the gates on us. Like, that type of stuff. That might be a little bit extreme, but at the same time, it's like, you walk into a city and it's the middle of the night and all of the NPCs, vendors, are still standing exactly where they've been for the last 10 years. Never moving once.
Or even if there are, like, weather mechanics that happen, like, on set schedules, it's, like, pouring, and people are like, fresh baked bread! You're like, what?
Mushy bread! It's, fresh mush. Yeah. And isn't it in Stormwind, there's those two kids that are fighting over the toy? They've been fighting over that toy for, like, 10 years.
They could have asked for money on the street and bought 3 of those toys by now.
The Elves of Norath, we know that they are basically, you can't have a conversation about Norath without relating to the elves, and that's kind of the way the story is written, for good or for bad. It's not like we can change it. We can debate the merits of it. Do the Elves of Norath feel like elves? Do what they build in Norath feel like what elves would do, given the chance? And I'm going to say that the answer is yes, that it feels like, given that these are elves, given the powers that they have, this is probably what they would end up doing. Yep.
Elves, everybody. Douchebags.
Yeah, elves.
I don't know. Listen, at this point, I think elves need to take it back. I think elves just need to.
And I think they have, like, in the Combine. I just don't like. I think that my internal debate is over. Did the elves take a step back because they truly believe that they're one race among equal races, or did they take a step back because they want to diffuse any sort of ire focused solely on them, and they're like, hey, whoa, we're not those elves. We're separate. We're different from those elves. We're now part of the Combine. We're So I guess that's where we'll see more in the further stories, because they've said that we're going to know more about what happened to the Combine once they arrived to Kunark, and what happened to the Tyr doll after they came back from the Umbra. And then there has to be, like, some sort of connecting those two story arcs together before the world of EverQuest Next launches, and this is the world as it is right at this moment.
I'm with it. I just think we need to. I just hope it's not the same tropes that we've always seen. I hope it changes going into the game.
How would you change it? Like, what is there to
I would say break them down, like, make them realize, like, hey, listen, like the newer elves, like the ones that are born, the ones that didn't die. We know that there are older elves, and Grandpa and Grandma can be a little bit racist, but that's fine. I think the newer elves can grow and say, like, this, we are now, instead of being races that we needed to survive, we are races that now need to survive, but we are friends with each other. This is a democracy. We can grow as a group and play forward with it. I'd like to see more of that instead of just like, oh, let's be high elves again.
if you really wanted to put a dark spin on the story, what you would do is you would do kind of like the what happened to, in France after the French Revolution, where they executed all their nobility, and be like after the Combine fled from once they arrived to Kunark and they realized that the elves, they brought all of this death and destruction upon the other Combine races. They're like, sure, we are now among equals and we are all a democracy, but all of your elf nobles have to die.
I'm down for it. Let's do it.
Elf commoners are fine. We have no problem with the people that were just like us. But it kind of like if there was a class system in place where you had the nobility as the high class, and then you had the lower middle elves, and then you had all the other races, they're like, you just have to eliminate that top rank of elves, and we're fine. Everybody else can just be equal after that. But we can't have those people because we know what those people are like and we know how they think.
I'm down
Too
for
dark.
it. Let's do
Too
it.
dark.
No, I'm good.
All like, hell yeah,
Yes.
execution.
Yeah, let's go. They are done. But that's me.
No, I think that sounds like a good idea. I like that.
Lucy, is that too dark?
I don't know. Somebody in chat said I was making faces, so I was obliging.
Oh. I can't do that with my mouth.
I think it's too dark for the game. It would have to be something that was. It would have to be something that everybody knew happened, and I don't think it could be one of those like hidden little things that was just hinted at. I think it would have to be a big deal. So I don't think they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I agree that they try to make Norath not necessarily like bad things happen, but really really dark stuff doesn't happen. If I can explain it that way. Like, it was horrible that like, in one of the stories, they were talking about a halfling village just getting decimated. That's bad, but that's not really dark. Oh, we lost.
God. Oh, no.
We lost Lucy! Alright, well, we were debating whether or not we were going to go the full 2 hours on the show this evening. I think that's a pretty good indicator that we're going to wrap it up a little bit earlier than normal. Guys, have any last thoughts about the elves of Norath, or elves in general?
Elves are dicks.
You love playing them, though.
Can't wait to play them.
Dicks. But God, I want to create one so bad.
It's true.
I played Landmark this morning.
Yes.
And I made myself the shadowy sword and shield.
Yes, the sword and shield that lock enemies into place, and
it was hot.
It is. It's nice.
I liked it.
Get two of those.
You
get two of those together, like two people playing that, and another person like doing just pure DPS. You can pretty much just wreck anything.
I was gonna bring that up.
I need armor. I don't have armor, and I don't have the mats to build armor. So now I'm trying to figure out like if I can safely go kill mobs with just this sword and shield and no fucking armor.
I was thinking about bringing that up to you if you wanted, like, because if you had the sword and shield and I had the sword and shield, we could just like grab one other person and we could just go wreck face, or maybe even just with the two of us with those sword and shield, we could just go and wreck face.
Probably.
Yeah.
If you played it right, yeah. But if you did it right, you could probably do it. But that being said, I will say my piece on elves. I think that they are assholes in the way that nobility of medieval time would be kind of like considered assholes. Like, you know, they were rich, they were knowledgeable, they had the better magic, so you know, that's how they rolled. But, you know, as times grow on, like in anything, like real world or fake, you know, you would think that people and classes and races and the cultures all change and grow. I mean, some things get held onto, so I would expect the same for EverQuest Next as we go back to the homeland and see what happens there. But I would hate to play a game where it's like clearly the elves are the math, the lead race, and everybody's going to want to roll an elf. I'd like to roll a dwarf and feel like we're all working towards a goal. So, but who knows? I may have to kill people. Hi, Tobrin. Hi, Tobrin.
We mentioned you and you appeared. That's funny.
Yes.
Good morning, Tobrin.
That's disturbing.
I'm
the best. Somebody said I was the best.
I totally agree. Best.
Mm-hmm.
I will probably not be playing an elf in EverQuest next.
No.
But I love nasty, arrogant, despicable, but brilliantly conniving elves or elf-like creatures.
Why do you think he married me? That's He
why I
doesn't
love.
deny it.
That's why I love the Castatins and Defiance, and that's why I kind of feel like the elves in other fantasy stories that are kind of like bland, kind of boring, and that's what I loved about the Takish story about the Emperor's son, who was like, you know that kid is going to grow up and he's going to go murder his father for being too weak. He's going to take over. I love those type of elves, even though I'm probably not going to play one because I'm going to stick with a human because I'm boring or something like that. So I think everybody got their final thoughts out. It was unfortunate that Lucy dropped out during the middle of the cast. And her internet isn't always the most stable. If you are catching us on YouTube after the broadcast, if you're catching us on Stitcher or iTunes after I put up the podcast, we really appreciate it. We love that you listen to us when you can. If you could hit that follow button, that subscribe button, that like button, that thumbs up, leave us a comment, tell us what you think about what we're talking about. It is all immensely appreciated by us. Even if we don't talk about it on the show and bring it up as like a conversation starter, we talk about it amongst ourselves all the time. So that's it for EverCast. Does anybody want to camp us out? Like, the floor is yours. I'm gonna step back and say you guys do your thing, and I'll hit the stop stream when we're ready.
All right, I'll camp us out real quick. reddit.com/r/evercast. That's our Reddit page. Go talk there too. We don't always have to do it on Twitter. Like, I follow things easier sometimes on Reddit late at night.
Reddit does make it easier to follow, especially because like if you're talking with 5 different people, you have to include all their names, and then it's like, oh, I included 5 different people's names. I now have 10 characters that I can put.
Yeah.
Like, yep.
So
Nope.
if you want to have these full length conversations, go over to our Reddit page, and we can actually pull them up better on the show and show bits and pieces and thoughts, and you can link things into websites and stuff. But without that, I'm gonna camp us out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Love you, Tobrin. See you not next week, but the week after. Bye.
Yep. 2 weeks. Good night.